Welcome back, Jeffrey, to my YouTube channel.
Back. Oh yeah, I've been here a couple of times now, huh?
Yes. So I don't know if you're familiar with the interview. The last time when I had you was a hike, so you weren't obligated to do this. You could spruce it up how you want. Any person that I this is my signature. Okay. You did it. Okay.
Thank you for having me back on your YouTube channel in a different capacity.
The last time I had him on here, he was giving us a tour with his company's XSM Eco Tour. And today's interview is more of different from the last one. It's this month we're highlighting the men. And I told him because it's Father's Day, that's the reason why I'm choosing to, just spend the entire month interviewing men because men are important in today's society. And his comment was, tell me what you said when I told you that.
Shouldn't just be because of Father's Day, you interviewing men. Men need to be appreciated throughout the year.
What I was saying is that he is right. Men should be celebrated all year round, all around. And so I'll give you the credit. You are right when it comes to that. So we're gonna start with, when I do my interviews, I start with the icebreaker, and it is attitude of gratitude. You can state one thing that happened throughout the week that you're grateful for, or a scripture that keeps you motivated.
Gratitude. I'm grateful to be here every day. Yeah, I'm grateful to be here every day. Just happy to be alive, happy to be in the land of the living, happy to be doing what I'm doing. So always grateful. And Bible verses, like every day it's a different Bible verse for me because I teach religion and something resonates. But this week it's been about loving others like you love yourself, like treating others how you want to be treated. And that's been heavy on my mind, heavy in everything I've came across this week. So treat others how I want to be treated, and I'm trying to treat people good so I can be good, so I can be happy. The energy is infectious.
Okay. Beautiful. Treat others as you treat yourself. Thank you for that. We'll go right into today's interview. What led you to teaching?
Somehow I knew you was going to ask me this question, and I was.
You prepared for it?
I prepared for this question.
Okay.
I don't know if to give you the long, so let me give you the long version. So I was in the States and I was at the GED class, and it was just easier to get into college that way. So I was at this GED class and I was bored out my mind. Everything they were teaching, I was already familiar with. And then I started teaching the GED class. The instructor had me instructing other people, and it just felt right. So I got to college, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. Right. And then I got to college, and then I saw special education. I was like, this is where, not just special education, like I saw the space, and there's not enough males in I guess here it's primary school. In the primary school level, there's not enough males, and we often don't understand the impact that males have at that level. So I was like, this is where I need to be. So primary education for me right now.
Awesome. Okay, so you were just picked out of the GED class to teach?
So the way it works is like you were there and they give you the work, they give you the test, and they grade you. So obviously I'm passing everything with like flying colors. I was young and the people there were older.
Obviously.
So then she was like, I don't know what she saw in me, but she was like, help this person with this, help this person with that. And then it just became what I wanted to do. So then it just became what I wanted to do, and I love what I do.
So as you mentioned that you noticed that there was a need for more males in education. So since you started teaching, are you able to tell what impact having a male instructor has as a teacher? It's very...
Yeah. So not even as a teacher, but maybe not, like just having males in the school is a different impact for the kids, right? They just gravitate to males differently. In the Caribbean, we single parent and all these things, or maybe you have a dad and you don't have a mom, or you have a mom, you don't have a dad. So just having male teachers around, it's always a different energy with children here, even in the States too, when I was up there. Just having males around is a different energy.
How have you used your occupation, you being a teacher, to influence your kids? Like, what do you do to make sure that you have a positive impact on the students that come across you, that those
So
are in your class?
you come up with the questions, Christine, like you planned this out.
I ain't even read the questions that I have written down yet.
Oh man, all right. Okay, so I have mostly boys in my class.
Okay.
I have a multi-age class, so but it's mostly boys, special education. And I try to be the role model that they can see, right? I try to keep myself neat. I try to be on time. I try to be respectful. I try to lead from a place of compassion. I always try to keep my emotions in check. I feel like little boys, those are things that doesn't come naturally to children. So they need to see a male that's, you know, how a male should carry himself. A man doesn't, not that you're not allowed to lose control, but a man apologizes, a man has good manners, a man keeps himself neat, a man is respectful, a man is kind, a man is compassionate. I try to be all of those things for them and instill those things in them. I always try to speak to my kids positively. Just so, and I require them to speak back to me with composure, with respect. The same respect I give you, the same respect I expect back from you. That's how I try to model being a man.
This might be a weird question, but do you treat, because you said you have mostly boys, males in your class, and how do you treat the girls and the boys differently? Because the same thing that you're teaching the guys is very beneficial for the girls as well. So
before I answer that question, you said boys, males just now. I was like, okay, Christine. The boys will tell you, yes, I treat the girls differently. The boys will tell you that, yes, but I don't think I do. But I know for sure I want my girls to see a male that's being compassionate and kind and understanding. So I don't think I do, but my students will tell you I probably do, but I really don't. The same consequences the boys get, the same consequences the girls get.
Why do you think they say that?
Because they're like, Mr. Jeffrey, you always be nice to the girls. I'm like, no, I'm not. The girls get their discipline too. I speak to their parents just as much. Only thing I don't do, so like I play with my boys a lot. Like we arm wrestle, I try to scare them, and I try not to do that too much with the girls. We gotta keep some boundaries. But the same things I require for the boys, I require from the girls.
Okay, so how do you provide a safe space for the boys? The reason why I asked that is we're just coming out of Mental Health Awareness Month, and one thing that I noticed just being in the Caribbean, and even you being back here, or even you just being a man, mental health amongst men, or having that safe space, is not something that men have. And now that mental health is something that is being spoken about even more, how do you instill, or if you do, teach them how to communicate their emotions? Like, how do you do that, if you do that for your kids?
That is a lot of what I do, right?
Okay.
As I said, I teach special education, and I don't think I said it outright.
You did.
All right, the boys, a lot of my students have behavioral issues. And I tend to see that behavior comes from when you're not able to express yourself. Okay. So if you're not able to express what you're feeling, you're not able to say what you want, and then you lash out, right? With a lot of people that are not trained in special education, it's child lashes out, child is done for the day. You know what I'm saying? Come back again tomorrow, refer to the social worker. All of a sudden the child has an issue. Right? But I feel I have special ed kids. All my kids are there. And I feel like, okay, you're allowed to lash out. You're allowed to feel what you're feeling. You're allowed to, you're allowed to have your feelings. But after that, what do you do? How quick do you calm down? How quick can you articulate? Because nobody has a perfect day all the time. Nobody has a good day all the time. So if you're angry and you scream, you scream. Don't destroy anything, and then let's talk about it after. Right? If you're not ready to talk, there's a safe space for you to be, and when you're ready to speak, you come back and we figure it out. Okay. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to make you the best student that you can be, and you're here to learn. School is a very safe place. right? And I also, like, I try to talk to my kids one-on-one and take interest in what's going on in their lives, right? And I tell them all the time, like, if there's something you want to talk to me about, feel free. Like, I'm always here to listen. I'll make the time for you, boys or girl, and we'll figure it out. Like I'm here for you. I'm not your enemy. I'm a teacher, but I'm here for you. Outside of just you learning to read, write, think, stuff like that.
Okay, so with
my classroom is a safe space. I should say my classroom is the safe space. What happens in here, we'll deal with it in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Jeffrey. So where parents are involved, have you noticed with sometimes single parent and with both parents, how important is it in your experience for both parents to be involved in comparison to a single parent household? Do you notice if there's a difference?
Yeah, of course. As a teacher, you know who has a single parent, you know who has a dual parent home, you know the student's socioeconomic status just from looking at it. Like, if you're around the kids enough and you're paying attention, you'll understand who is who. Both parents does matter. It really do. But at the same time, it's both parents could be in the household and not both parents are involved.
That's why I involved.
So it's when both parents are involved, communication is much, like, things happen. You talk to the parent talk to the kid. Like, you don't have this disconnect. Like, nothing is. If you're doing what you're supposed to do as a teacher and you're communicating with the parents, there's no surprises in between, right? I try to tell my parents, like, we are the team. Like, it's us. I have kids that have single parents. I have kids that have dual parents. I try to talk to all of my parents equally. So it's like, we're the team. But there is a difference when you have two versus one. But the reality is what the reality is in some situations.
How are you able, or if you're able, to tell the difference in a kid when a father is involved?
I have a student, right? His father, he lives with his mom. His dad lives somewhere else. He spends a couple of weekends with his dad and such and such and such, right? He lives with his mom almost full time, right? So I'm driving, minding my business, and I see him at the side of his road, like, run and hug and squeeze his dad. Right? And he looks so happy, like he's so happy. So I told him about it the following Monday, and I was like, yo, I saw you with your dad, how was that? He was like, man, it was nice seeing my dad. Like, he was just, and he is enamored by his father. And I said to myself, his father needs to spend more time in his life. And especially, like, he's at the age now where he's about to become a teenager. Like, he needs his dad much more now than.
Awesome. Okay. Special education. What led you to study special education? Why?
Two things, really. When you look at education, you see that more and more kids are being diagnosed. As we understand the way people learn more, we understand learning needs, learning disabilities, the spectrum of learning, and you see that more and more. If you notice that more and more kids are being diagnosed with different things, right? So they need more and more teachers that are trained in this area to help these children. That's one. And they don't have, I was in the States for a really long time. I mean, they do have a lot of teachers that look like me, but there's also a lot of spaces where there's kids that look like me that don't have teachers like me that come from the backgrounds that they come from, that understand.
So they can't really relate.
So they can't really relate. So that's needed. Like, we wear so many hats these days. You need to have people that relate to you. So that's calling.
So that's the reason. That's what led you to special education?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, you needed, and I liked it. Like, once you become a special education teacher, you could teach any class. It doesn't matter. Like, your shift is the way your mind thinks. The way my mind thinks now, like, I could go into any classroom and I can adjust to that classroom. Right? Versus if you are a regular ed teacher, not saying that they're not, then you could just, you're not necessarily trained to how to deal with somebody. Like, a good teacher would make a relationship with the child and figure out the issue, but, like, not to bash anyone, but I shouldn't say good, I should say experienced teacher.
Okay,
So you can edit that out. Like an experienced teacher, gonna know what to do, but an inexperienced, you're gonna be overwhelmed, right? And then he or she has to do whatever they need to learn the child. But once you're a special education teacher, you have like, there's no classroom space that they could put you into, and that you can't adapt to.
Okay. So since you've been back to St. Martin and you did your special education abroad, coming back home, what are the things that you notice that, let's say, St. Martin may need to help kids that are in special education students?
So the first thing we're going to say is we gotta try to change the narrative of what it means, right?
Okay.
What special education is. So if you're a child that has special education, it doesn't necessarily mean you're dumb, right? Or you're less than somebody. I've had students that are smarter. Like I have one that's genius level right now. Like genius level. He's like 9, genius level. He could do high school. He could work at a high school level at 9. But his behavior needs a lot of room to improve. He can't express himself, which leads to a lot of frustration and anger. So somebody would look at him and he would be labeled. He's labeled a special education child, which is a fair representation. And if you don't know him personally, you think he's dumb, he's crazy, or whatever. But in actuality, the boy's just IQ is really, really high. So it's, you have to be able to see the kids in a different way. And that's the number one thing that we have to change on this island. Not because you're in a special education space means you're less than anyone else. It just means that your learning needs, what you need to succeed as a student is a little bit different than others. And we need to re-examine that on the island in a whole. No one's perfect.
And what about resources? I know we talk about resources a lot on St. Martin, but something that resources that can assist students in special education. And I'm trying to say that it doesn't have to be government has to do this. Some things that can be done, maybe could be done on let's say government does something, and then something that could be done on a
local level.
Yeah, state.
So I don't subscribe to the government have to do anything for us.
Okay.
Type mentality, right? I believe that we the people are the government. If we say this, then the government will follow.
Okay.
Right? That's how I look at it. Secondly, there's a lot of things on this island here for kids in special education. It's just not highlighted. There's a lot of things on this island, people with foundations, people with, spaces for these children. It's just not highlighted enough. Or if you don't, there's, every day you move around St. Martin and you're like, oh, I didn't know this, we have this here. You almost have that moment twice a week if you're moving around the island. So there is stuff here. It's just, I don't know if it's lack of promotion or lack of knowledge or support, right? There's a lot of stuff here. So you have to, anyone, if you want it, they'll find. There's a lot of stuff here. What I would like is more spaces, like more open play spaces for children on this island that they could just be, that
more
open spaces for kids to play, like
Okay.
rec centers and things like that. But obviously we have a spatial limitation on this island, so we can't have too much of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff here. If you go out there and look, both Dutch side and French side, you'll find there's things for kids, people that are highly trained and certified that are ready to provide services. So there's enough here. You just got to.
So we don't have a lack of resources.
No, we have a lack of knowledge of the resources and I would say a lack. I don't like saying lack, but for lack of a better word, people using, finding the resources to use it. And then you don't have shame is not the right word, but like, you have to be in a space to accept your child as, has this learning challenge, and then you have to accept it. Acceptance is one of the biggest things, and then using all the resources. Like we have a lot of, in my opinion, latchkey kids, where the kid come home from school and they're in the house by themselves, or they're in afternoon school studying again, and then they go home and they're in for a couple hours and it's bed, and then back.
What did you call it? Or what? kid?
Latchkey.
Latchkey, okay.
So latchkey kids is a term that big cities have for kids that are literally the latch and the key. So they come home by themselves, they lock themselves in the house, and they're there until the parents come back. So you go to school, you come home, lock your door, you stay in your house till your parents come. That's all you see.
You don't open your door for any strangers and those kind of things. Yes.
Yeah, but the term came about like they don't have any activities. It's just school, home by themselves. There's no parent in the house with them to supervise them, you know, or to, you know, make them study, make them go to, it's kids that are taking care of themselves. I find we have a lot of that here. Like parents work from crazy hours or 2 jobs. You know, and then the child just goes to school, get picked up by the afternoon school, stay in afternoon school, go home 5 o'clock, eat, watch TV.
What is with kids being that way, what is the result of that?
So a lot of kids in this generation, who all saying that, right? They're screen babies. Like they're behind their tablet, they're behind their device. The screen is raising them. You know, a lot of parents don't limit, or they try to limit their screen time or take their tablet or whatever, or the kid is misbehaving and then they give them their tablet. So the tablet is raising them, and the world now is more connected than it's ever been, right? So your favorite YouTuber could be some dude in South Korea that's talking about something that
doesn't have no relation.
You probably shouldn't be at 8, 9 years old knowing about, and then you think that's normal. You know, so it's screen dependency is definitely something that we gotta work on.
Okay.
Not just here alone, worldwide. Not, you know, I'm not bashing St. Martin.
No, but I get what you're saying, because back in the days, I mean, I used to watch a lot of TV. So I'm one of those kids. But growing up on the island, or, you know, there was a lot of playing in the yard, jumping on the trees, and doing all of those different activities, which I believe still helps with your, you know, your upbringing. You know how to move around with people. A lot of us just being stuck, and even during the pandemic too, I think that increased the screen time even more. And sometimes it can cause you not to even want to socialize or don't know how to socialize, especially as kids. Skills. Yes.
You lack this, like school was taken away from these children for like a year and a half. School is a safe place. School is where, let's say you're an only child at home and your cousins live off island. So all your friends are basically at school, and then school was taken away from you for a year. So all you know, so you come back to school and you're grown and it's already awkward interacting with people. So then that got worse. So you know, you're watching these kids, people on the internet, these adults, and you don't know that they're putting on a show. This is not necessarily who they are. So you think, and a child growing up thinking that, oh, this is normal. This is how I'm supposed to be. This is how I'm supposed to speak. You know, I joke with my friend that I was like, how does your kids have American accent and they've never been off the island?
It's true. It's true.
Like, how, bro? And he's like, boy. I was like, yeah. I was like, this is from the being behind of a tablet. Like they using slangs. I'm like,
I mean, the slang part was like, something that is always done, but the accent growing up on the island, that's like,
you know, I thought it's only the, you know, I don't want to mention no names, but yeah, the accent thing. I was like, how do you have American accent and you've never been off this island? You're like 4. How?
It's the screen time.
It's the screen time.
That's what. With them returning, it was a year, you said, from the pandemic. How different was it for them, or to readjust to being in a classroom and being around their students? I mean, fellow students.
I'm only going to speak for myself, right? So when my students came back, some had graduated and new students had entered the mix, right? So, but my school was one of the schools that was part of the reconstruction program that the government has out going on right now. You know about that, right? Where they're doing over the schools that got damaged from hurricane. So my school was one of the first ones that got repaired. And one of the things that happened is that, so we had to move out of our building and go somewhere else while they were doing the construction. Okay. So the location that I got for my students, we were basically there by ourselves. And it was a nice open space. Right, so we had a building, we taught inside, we had a gazebo, we had a lawn, we had kids' space for them to run. It was just them alone. And that really helped in readjusting. They mixed in together, they readjusted, they mixed, like they would come, we would sit under the gazebo, we would eat, We would play football. We would play kickball. I taught them how to catch the American football.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was so for them. So they got readjusted to themselves, and then eventually we moved back into our building, and then slowly but surely they got readjusted to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so my situation is a bit different when they got back. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
they got to view the whole classroom, but I saw a lot of drop back in their work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Drop back in one sense, but then in the other sense, like everybody know how to Google now. Everybody know how to use the technology better. Everybody knows how to go and shortcut the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is a plus if you look at it.
Okay.
The technology is only going to get more accessible as they get older. So yeah, there's some negative, but that was a plus. Like everybody in my class is technology literate.
Mm.
Like go turn on the computer, go find. I just say go find this and tell me
Mm-hmm.
what the answer is. Come back and they go and do it. I don't have to go and turn on the computer, set up, pull up the website, nothing. I just go log into Teams and find your assignment, and they're able to do that without my support. And that's definitely something, and that's a strength that all these kids have.
Okay.
In this generation, that they're very technology literate.
Okay. And for the parents, I wanted to speak a little bit on the parents and having children with special
needs.
Yes.
It's not a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. Like don't be afraid to say, like, I have a special need, you have a special need. It's just that I'm the teacher that that accommodates that need. Like I'm here for that.
Okay.
So don't be afraid.
I kind of want to go back to what you just said, but let's speak on the parents. How can parents have the support for having or dealing with a special need kid? Do you understand the question?
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
So I'm going to take from what you're asking me. How can parents get the support they need to help support their special need kid child?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So luckily, again, our system has a lot of programs for that. We have that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's mandatory meetings. There's trainings. There's organizations that provide that. At my school, we have a parent day. Don't judge me. I can't remember what they call it right now. It's off day. Right. So we have that, and then the parents come in. They can sit in. They have trainings. They talk about it. They talk about how to support your child, your child with special needs. We have that. We have a person for that, and then the social worker team. Mm-hmm. They come in and they meet with the parents separately to just to provide resources, answer those questions. For example, one of my apologies is a parent needing some information like what to do with their child, and then they contacted the social worker, and the social worker put them in touch with the organization. Like it's there. Like if you ask, the help is there.
Okay, and I think with that too, the response or the resource would be different for parents depending on the child, right?
Depending on what you want to do. So I kind of glossed over that point a little bit. Like most special needs kids on this island, they're assigned a social worker, right? So, and your social worker goes out there and find the resources and bring it back to your parent.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that you have to come out of pocket to go find this. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that happens. Like if you want to put your child in the art program, you have to pay for the art program. But a lot of these programs, they offer free services.
Okay.
So it's if you don't ask the question, you're not going to know. So there's a huge community of people that's out here on this island that's offering services. You just gotta ask.
So the training then, would it be a training that teaches how to speak or deal with your child?
Yes. Okay. There's definitely a training where they sit down and they talk to let's say I am diagnosed with dyslexia. You know what dyslexia is, right?
Yes. For the people that don't know.
Dyslexia is when you have a hard time reading the letters are jumbled up, you don't make sense in your mind, or you don't sound out words correctly. I'm diagnosed with dyslexia. So the social worker is going to come to my mom and dad, and they're going to speak to them about what it means to get dyslexia. What are my challenges? What are my triggers? What are some frustrations that they can have? So my parents will have a knowledge that, okay, so I'm not doing well in my reading on my report card. My reading is not good. So they don't mean that I'm failing reading, but it's because I have this. Right? And then the social worker would be like, here's some resources to support your child with dyslexia. This is what you need to do. These are the things you need to work on. And here's an organization in St. Martin, or a person or a group of persons that work with students with dyslexia. And then, you know, so you can use, these are the resources. How you use it is up to you. So then the parent know, like, so, you know, my mom is not saying, oh my God, Jeffrey can, he get it from his father, you know, you know. But, you know, there's a whole, it's a whole team behind every child there is, and there should be a team of people that's working to better it. So it's definitely out there.
You said that, I like that, but you said that everyone has a, what did
special
you say?
Needs?
Yes.
Everyone does.
I love that you said it, because in the conversations that we had before, I started to think, oh, maybe I do have, because you speak about your students a lot. You didn't want to admit it, but you really do love what you do. And I admire that about you. And in us speaking, I was like, not what level of spectrum that I'm on, but it just opened my eyes that everyone is, or could be, on the spectrum. Some is more, yeah, correct me, do your head like this, tell me.
I'm sorry, I forget
that I can see you.
Like,
yes.
So right now we're having like a real conversation that we would have, and then people are seeing my reaction. I apologize. Yeah. So
explain the comment that you made.
Don't go diagnosing yourself. That's my
no. It's not really me diagnosing.
But at the same time, it's like, so we live in a melting pot. There's a lot of cultures here, a lot of languages, a lot of people from different places here, right? This is how I think about it. So a child now, let's say Christine born here. Christine mother from Finland, she speaks Finnish, and her father from Norwegian, and he speaks no. Those are places I want to go. But I want you to think, I want you to think out there. Okay. So your mother from Finland, she speaks Finnish. Your father from Norway, he speaks Norwegian, right? So as a child growing up at home, you're speaking 2 languages, right? Now you have to come to school or live in a culture where you learn a 3rd or 4th language, right? So that's English and Dutch. Now you have to make sense of 4 languages in your brain. Kids could do it. They can, their brains are wired that way. But at the same time, there's a learning curve, and everybody's learning curve is different. So now you come to school and you're saying an English word with a Finnish word. The teacher is going to tell you you're wrong. Or you saying a Dutch word, a Norwegian style. You know what I'm saying? Or you saying so your teacher is going to tell you you're wrong, which you are. But at the same time, if the teacher is not understanding your background and your culture, right, or a teacher that's trained to teach reading, which they are, right, you're going to, and you as a child naturally are going to struggle, right? So now your special need is to learn English in the way that we speak it here, in the way that it's taught to you in school. And some students might need a little bit more time or a little bit more help learning that, right? So all of a sudden now you have a special need. Does that make you less than anyone?
No, teacher Jeffrey.
In 20 plus years, you're multilingual. You're speaking 4 or 5 languages. You're super employable. But at the ages of 0 to struggling with making sense of all of this in your brain, which is completely normal. And we have a lot of kids here that come from different cultures. You know, your father is from Trinidad, your mother is from, you know, they speak, and you're learning Dutch in school, you're learning English in school, or you're learning French. You know, so it's when you think of a special needs, it's not all negative. It's just the way it's set up. Everyone has a special need. Okay. Some of us got a little bit more than others, but
all on camera. But I could really relate what you explained there, because I believe 1st grade, I used to get in problems a lot for the language barrier, because I only spoke English in school, and when I was home, it was just Creole. And even to this day, pronouncing certain words, I have to go through it in my head first before I speak it out. I guess that's why sometimes with forming my sentences, I struggle at times when it comes to it. I feel like you just diagnosed me. I don't know how I feel about that.
No, and the crazy
too
thing
much.
About it, so the thing about it, back when we went to school, that didn't exist. That wasn't something that people, at least from my perspective as a child, that wasn't something that was prominent. But now it is. People are aware that, hey, you have to, you know, this is something you have to focus on. So it becomes a special need, but it's not negative. It's not negative. It's just you need more help with X, Y, Z.
It makes it to better understand it too. If the teachers understand, and even before I didn't even understand what it was until I had the conversation with you. When I was younger, I used to, I guess, think in Creole. I don't know.
Yes.
But now if I'm speaking Creole, I think about it in English and I try and translate it. No, I think about it in English and I try to translate it in Creole. That's work, man.
That's work. And you know what's crazy? So one of the things that they tell you is that as a parent, you become your child's conscience. You become the voice in their head. So if you think about what you just said, your initial language was Creole, so that your conscience was in Creole, right? And you had to learn to speak English, and that's from your parents. So if your parents aren't doing as a parent, when you pour into your child, you try to pour in positivity, you try to pour in love, you try to pour in, because that's what becomes the voice in their head. What you pour into them. Just to think about that. That's from your experience alone.
That's crazy. And a lot of times when I speak, I can hear my mom. My mannerism, like certain things that I do, I can hear my mom. That's amazing to know. That's gems right there. Thank you for that. Is there anything additional that you would like to say before we end the interview? I think this was really great. Honestly,
you're done talking to me already?
I barely look at the questions that I had. Let me make sure I touch base. I think this was beautiful.
Look at this.
You don't want to go. I do that in my interviews. The conversations are so rich. Okay, I could ask you one thing. What's your favorite thing about teaching?
Man, my favorite thing about teaching, and I would say every teacher's favorite thing, is that little aha moment when the child gets it. Like when they're learning something, they're struggling and they're going through the process of learning, because it's never a straight line, A to B. So that moment when you watch them think and it makes sense, that's like my favorite moments. And when they win, when they pass a test, when they get an award, when they win, those are my favorite things. Like my phone just popped up with some memories and I'm like, look how big they got. When I see them in the streets and they're like 15 and 16 and they're like, "What's going on, Mr. Jeff?" And I was like, "Well, look at you." Those are my favorite.
Deep voice and all.
Like their voice, like them, like they're this tiny, and then they're like, "So, Mr. Jeffrey, you good?" I was like, "Dude."
And it happens so fast.
They grow up so fast. They grow up so fast. So I got a question for you. Am I allowed to ask you a question?
You're a second guest to ask me questions.
Because you gotta interview.
I like being the one to ask questions, but you could go ahead.
You gotta give up. You gotta give to get back. You can't pour from a full cup. Well, from an empty cup.
So yes, you can pour from a full cup.
I said empty cup. I corrected myself. So
go ahead.
When are you gonna come into education? What's up with that? When are you gonna come to the other side?
That's your question.
All this social worker stuff, you got to come and put it to use on this side.
What do you mean? I mean, I'm a social worker, so maybe I might come up with stuff to help to assist the education aspect of things.
You're surrounded by teachers, Christine. When you coming over to the other side?
I am surrounded by a few teachers, yes. I have some, actually, in all honesty, I have some ideas, some stuff that in mind. It's not fully developed as yet, because when I returned from the States, I noticed which vacation there was like a midterm break, and I'm like, there's nothing for students to do during this time, and these are things that I'm noticing, and that's where my perspective, that's where my mind is going. So keep your eyes and ears out. I'll reach out to you when I do make that step. It's interesting that you would ask me that question, Mr. Jeffrey. But yeah, that's the trajectory that I'm going.
Trajectory. All right, no problem.
How?
No, I'm correct.
It's okay. You don't already did it. At least you're helping me from embarrassing myself. Tell me.
Trajectory.
And
then you don't have to be ashamed of it. People don't pronounce certain letters in their words, and that's our culture. So we should honor that. We the way you speak is part of your culture. That's a heavy part of it. So don't be ashamed.
Well, my tongue very heavy. I know this, but
so
I'm still working on progressing it, because it also looks like I'm gonna be doing a lot of those talking moments. So you do want to pronounce things correctly when I'm speaking. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have one last question. I think you kind of answered it in a sense, but I'll still ask it. What is a misconception about special education, about special need children that you find that is out there?
The number one misconception I would say is that these children are less.
Mm.
They're not less. In a lot of cases, they're more than quote unquote regular kids.
Mm.
So they're not less. That's a misconception. That's my number one. They're not less. They're just the same, if not more, than these kids. Some kids feel emotion in a different way. And as a child, you don't know how to express it or regulate it. Some kids are very good academically, but they're not good socially. Some kids are good socially, but they're not good academically. So, and those, as you become an adult, all those skills all those areas of you have to come together to make you a whole person. So if you need a little bit more help in developing one part of yourself as a child, that doesn't make you less than anyone. So I want everyone to know, special education doesn't mean less. In a lot of cases, it's more.
Okay, awesome. So any last things you would like to say before we close off the interview?
Yes,
I know you don't want to leave.
Yes, make sure you put more men on your YouTube channel and do more interviews, and
I'm doing the interviews.
And support the men more. Like, men need positive affirmations, and we need to know that we're valued.
I don't know if that's a jab at me. I try my best to be very a positive person.
It's not a jab. It's not a jab. My generation of men, I see we putting in the work. We're healing traumas. We're being better. We're stepping up as dads. We're stepping up as providers, protectors. And we're in a lot more. We're opening ourselves more. So don't just do it because it's Father's Day. Just do it throughout the year. All right. She's smiling. That's her fake smile on her face. She's about to call me after this and tell me off.
But you are right. And we do have to commend the men when, they are doing the work. And I see a lot of, not just dads, active dads, but men that are actually doing the work. And some of them might not be vocal about it, and to each its own, but kudos to those that are, working on the healing process. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes time. So big ups to you, men. Big ups to you for doing the work. So guys, thank you for watching today's video. We've heard Mr. Jeffrey share his take on being special education and him also diagnosing me as well. Thank you guys for watching today's video. I hope that you guys were able to take something, learn from it. I do find it was really good. Leave a comment, share with your peoples, and don't forget to like. Have a blessed and a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me here, Christine.
You're welcome.
The bloopers.
What is your signature move? And you don't have any lighting facing your face?
Christine, I'm a man.
What do you mean, Christine, you're a man?
Is that better?
Yeah.